Growing up in Trinidad and Tobago, we had a tradition of cooperation known as gayap, which means go back and get it. It was a very powerful indigenous system where we lent a hand trying to help people in the community. So as a teenager, I participated in a couple of gayaps where I lent a hand by helping my neighbors finish their incomplete homes. So I would do things like mix cement, lay bricks, carry materials. Let me be honest, I tried to help. My construction skills were not exactly top-notch. But guess what? I showed up. And truthfully, one of the main reasons I was there was for the reward, which was a plate of pilau, which is a dish pretty popular in Trinidad that's made with rice, pigeon peas, chicken, cooked in coconut milk, and lots of love. So I may have been useless at construction, but I was highly skilled at eating pilau. So when it came to a gayap, a big part of it was cooperation and empathy. And by doing this, we learned skills such as cooperation and working together with others. We really made a difference within the community. Gayap could really teach us a lot about cooperation and empathy, and I think we could really scale this up. And even though it's unique to Trinidad and Tobago, indigenous traditions of cooperation exist in many parts of the world, many parts of the global south. So in Brazil, with my spiritual brothers and sisters in Brazil, they have a system called mutirao, which is very similar to gayap, minus the pilau. In Peru, they have something called minca, which means joint effort. And then when you travel to Rwanda, there's a system known as umuganda, which means working towards a common purpose. As human beings, we are hardwired to cooperate. So many of us, when we engage in cooperative behaviors, when we help people, our brain releases oxytocin, which makes us feel good. So I felt good helping my neighbors when it came to the gayap. When we engage in these cooperative behaviors, we are filled with all of these good feelings. So this is what it means to be truly human. I believe now more than ever, we have an opportunity to operationalize the mantra, I am because we are, to tackle one of our greatest problems, which is unbridled capitalism. And there are a lot of symptoms of unbridled capitalism that we witness today. Things like the climate crisis, things like loss of biodiversity. So unbridled capitalism is causing a lot of social ills. And I believe we need a more regenerative approach, one that is centered in cooperation and empathy to tackle some of the problems we are facing today. We need to really rethink capitalism. And as a business school professor, I have to admit sometimes we are a bit guilty of just teaching about profit, 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 and all these things, when instead we should also be focused on other aspects such as sustainability, other aspects such as cooperation, and alternative business models. And some of these business models could really help sustain us, some of these alternative business models. So things like cooperatives. So the cooperative economic system, otherwise known as co-ops, these are very sustainable types of businesses that focus on shared ownership and decision-making. And there are a number of successful co-ops today that are doing a really good job sustaining communities. And I would like you all to do some homework. There's this scholar by the name of Jessica Gordon-Nemhard. She wrote this book called Collective Courage, which really looks at the history of African Americans making a difference in the cooperative movement. Then there are B corporations. So these companies do a really good job balancing profit with purpose. There's this one ice cream company that is classified as a B corporation, and they're doing a really good job making a difference in society as it relates to addressing the climate change, fair trade, business and human rights. And then there are social enterprises. So these are enterprises that really do a good job uplifting communities. They can be for-profit or non-profit, but they are much needed today, more so than ever. Then we have to really think about ways to tackle some of the cracks in the system. So recent recession, we went through a pandemic, and you all see that image of those eggs on that picture, so we're facing inflation. So by next month, a dozen eggs might be $1,000, who knows? But I don't want to stand here and talk about doom and gloom. So we may need to look in history books and try to find a hero to help us reimagine capitalism. And some of you are probably scratching your head, why is Adam Smith on that screen right now? So Adam Smith, you all may know him for writing a book that's called Wealth of Nations, where he talked a lot about profits and self-interest and the invisible hand. But he wrote a book prior to Wealth of Nations that was called The Theory of Moral Sentiments. And in that book, he argued that we need to balance self-interest with empathy. So what if we incorporate more empathy within the capitalistic economic system? So a lot of people, they look at Adam Smith as a champion of greed, but that's a myopic view. So he's no Logan Roy from Succession, or Gordon Gekko from that movie Wall Street, where the mantra was, greed is good. But this is actually his mantra. He actually wrote in his book, man naturally desires not only to be loved, but to be lovely. That's something I would quicker expect to hear from Ted Lasso or Dr. Phil, not an economist like Adam Smith. How can we make capitalism lovelier? One approach we could utilize is a cooperative advantage approach. And this is an idea I came up with my research partner, Dr. Simone Phipps. And there are three main principles to achieving a cooperative advantage. The first one is a spirit of care and community. So companies that actually go above and beyond to care for their customers, care for their clients, care for their community, and even care about the invisible workers within the global supply chain, they tend to do much better as it relates to their corporate reputation and the brand loyalty. So doing good and doing well has its benefits. They're actually allies, they are not opposites. Then there's dialogue. So companies that really listen to the voices of the communities, all stakeholders within the value chain, tend to do a better job gaining trust as they tackle issues related to climate justice and other social ills. Then there's consensus building. So companies that do a good job achieving consensus on business and human rights and dealing with the loss of biodiversity and human rights, they tend to do a good job engendering loyalty from customers. So there are clear benefits to making a difference in that regard. And one pioneer as it relates to gaining a cooperative advantage is Charles Clinton Spaulding. He's known as the father of African-American management. And during his time on Earth, when he was alive in the early 20th century, he was known as Mr. Cooperation. The leadership that he practiced back then looked like these indigenous traditions of cooperation. Many of these traditions survived the Middle Passage from Africa into the United States and the rest of the Americas. So he embodied that within his company. And his company, the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company, had a motto in 1899, and the motto of the company was, the company with a soul and a service. And they really believed in social sustainability and making a difference as it relates to community well-being. And he once wrote in 1937 that there must be social service in business. So he really lived by that philosophy. It is time for us to move away from all of the extraction that we see in unbridled capitalism, all of the exploitation of labor, and instead try to focus on a more regenerative approach, one that sustains us. So that gayap in Trinidad didn't just teach me about mixing cement or how to enjoy a good plate of pilau, but it also taught me the importance of working together. So like cement, once our views on capitalism harden, it is hard to change. But we all have an opportunity to rethink the mix and create a system that is stronger, more empathetic, more cooperative. Because as Adam Smith might remind us, capitalism works best when it's built with a foundation of empathy.